I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. I am continuing my reading. I'm still in the Doctrine and Covenants, reading in section 124. This is the longest section in the Doctrine and Covenants. I wasn't quite sure how to divide it up in my reading because it's very difficult in its organization, you might say. There's not many good places to split it up. I mean, not many obvious places. So I was going to read it. Originally, I thought of reading it in 4 sections, but then I thought, well, the obvious places to divide it weren't in good places. I'd have only like 10 verses left for the fourth video. So I thought, well, I'll just do it in 3 videos. And then I did my last reading, and, well, it just took way too long. I mean, the first reading was too long. Second reading was just way too long. And I started thinking to myself, well, no, I did have a stopping point. And so I decided to cut it short. But that means that all my edits for this video are going to be very choppy because I actually originally recorded a portion of this reading with my second reading, and I had to edit it out, take it out of that reading and put it in this reading, and it's all going to be a bit choppy in the editing, and I do apologize for that. Now, what we read in the last one was partly the reason why we build temples for the ordinances, the higher ordinances of the Melchizedek priesthood, including baptism for the dead, but also the endowment. And then we had a lengthy description on the way to run the business of the Nauvoo house and how to sell stocks. No man can buy more than $15,000 worth of stocks, which is approximately, I believe, 300 shares, because they're being sold at $50 a share, so $50 minimum, $15,000 maximum. Even Joseph Smith is not allowed to have more than $15 worth, so that no single person has an undue influence in the running of the Nauvoo house. And all this money must be used for the Nauvoo house. It cannot be used for other reasons. If it is, that is tantamount to theft and must be repaid in 4 times the value. And that is what we read last, was all about the Nauvoo house. So now we pick it up. We're going to read verse 74 to 96. And there are others also who wish to know my will concerning them, for they have asked it at my hands. Therefore I say unto you concerning my servant Vincent Knight, if he will do my will, let him put stock into that house for himself, and for his generation after him, from generation to generation. And let him lift up his voice long and loud in the midst of the people, to plead the cause of the poor and the needy. And let him not fail, neither let his heart faint. And I will accept of his offerings, for they shall not be unto me as the offerings of Cain, for he shall be mine, saith the Lord. Let his family rejoice, and turn away their hearts from affliction, for I have chosen him, and anointed him, and he shall be honored in the midst of his house. For I will forgive all his sins, saith the Lord. Amen. Verily I say unto you, let my servant Hyrum put stock into the house, as seemeth him good, for himself and his generation after him, from generation to generation. Let my servant Isaac Galland put stock into that house, for I, the Lord, love him for the work he hath done, and will forgive all his sins. Therefore let him be remembered for an interest in that house from generation to generation. Let my servant Isaac Galland be appointed among you, and be ordained by my servant William Marks, and be blessed of him to go with my servant Hyrum, to accomplish the work that my servant Joseph shall point out to them, and they shall be greatly blessed. Let my servant William Marks pay stock into that house, as seemeth him good, for himself and his generation, from generation to generation. And let my servant Henry G. Sherwood pay stock into that house, as seemeth him good, for himself and his seed after him, from generation to generation. Let my servant William Law pay stock into that house, for himself and his seed after him, from generation to generation. If he will do my will, let him not take his family unto the eastern lands, even unto Kirtland. Nevertheless, I, the Lord, will build up Kirtland, but I, the Lord, have a scourge prepared for the inhabitants thereof. So in this portion, we just get a number of men are being told they should buy stocks in the house. We get a few other things. Vincent Knight is to go out and preach the gospel, raise his voice. He is to be remembered, his family is to support him. So he's given some blessings there. Hyrum is to buy stock. Isaac Galland is supposed to buy stock, right? All of these men. There are a few other blessings mixed in, but most of it is just saying these are the leaders of the church. They're not all apostles, Joseph Smith and Hyrum are members of the First Presidency, but the rest of them are leading men in the community. Whether they are high officials in the church, whether they're apostles or not, they are leading men in the community and in the church. They are well-respected men. And God is saying, you guys need to buy in. As much, he doesn't say, give us $10,000. He says, buy what you feel is appropriate, but you need to buy something to kind of set the example. And that's what this is. Set the example for everybody else so that others will buy into it as well. Because we need to raise the money. Now, I do find it interesting that William Law is told not to go to Kirtland. Apparently, William Law was contemplating going back to Kirtland to live there, and God is saying, no, stay in Nauvoo, because while I will bless Kirtland, God says he will bless Kirtland, he will build it up eventually, but he has a scourge prepared for the inhabitants thereof. Kirtland, the people drove the saints out. They persecuted the saints, drove them out. Now God has the scourge waiting for them. After they have suffered through the scourge of the wrath of God, then God will build up the cities. And we see that to a certain extent with, the historical buildings of church that they had. Just recently, the church was able to buy back the Kirtland Temple. And I think we will see the city of Kirtland rising once again as a major part and a major influence in the nation. Kirtland will become a great center for the church. I think we're seeing the scourge. God has now said the scourge is over. But we continue now, verse 84. And with my servant, Alman Babbitt, there are many things with which I am not pleased. Behold, he aspireth to establish his counsel instead of the counsel which I have ordained, even that of the presidency of my church. And he setteth up a golden calf for the worship of my people. Let no man go from this place who has come here a-saying to keep my commandments. If they live here, let them live unto me. And if they die, let them die unto me. For they shall rest from all their labors here, and shall continue their works. Therefore let my servant William put his trust in me, and cease to fear concerning his family because of the sickness of the land. If ye love me, keep my commandments, and the sickness of the land shall redound to your glory. Let my servant William go and proclaim my everlasting gospel with a loud voice and with great joy, as he shall be moved upon by my spirit, unto the inhabitants of Warsaw, and also unto the inhabitants of Carthage, and also unto the inhabitants of Burlington, and also unto the inhabitants of Madison, and await patiently and diligently for further instructions at my general conference, saith the Lord. If he will do my will, let him henceforth hearken to the counsel of my servant Joseph, and with his interest support the cause of the poor, and publish the new translation of my holy word unto the inhabitants of the earth. And if he will do this, I will bless him with a multiplicity of blessings, that he shall not be forsaken, nor his seed be found begging bread. Let us pause it there a minute. This is all talking to William Law. Now we have this mention of William Babbitt, who wants to set up his own council, and he gives a golden calf. This is, of course, in reference back to Exodus, when the Israelites made a golden calf to return to Egypt. This is idol worship, but it's not. He didn't have a physical golden calf, but he's setting up an ideology, an idea that is opposed to the counsel of God, and that becomes his golden calf. Apparently, his idea is we return to Kirtland because there's still the malaria going through Illinois. Now, when they first came out of Missouri, there was a big malaria epidemic throughout Nauvoo because they were in close quarters. They were all kind of crammed in together, and they were in a swamp with a lot of mosquitoes, and that malaria spread throughout. We had a great outpouring of the Spirit and the blessings of the gift of healing, with Joseph healing hundreds. But the malaria continued. Now, it dies out, it goes away in the winter when the mosquitoes all die off. But when spring comes back and the mosquitoes are back, the malaria comes again. And apparently, from what it's saying here, that it says because of the sickness of the land, a lot of people are saying, well, let's go back to Kirtland where we don't have this problem and we can rebuild the church there again. And God's saying, no, don't do that. Stay here and I will bless you here in Nauvoo. If you go, you don't have the blessing because you are not following my counsel. And Alman Babbitt apparently is the one leading this movement to go back to Kirtland. That's what it appears to me here. I haven't noticed that in my review of the church history written by Joseph Smith, but I've only been kind of skimming over it. I haven't been doing a detailed study of it, so I could have missed it. But that's what it seems to be saying here. Let us now pick it up in verse 91. And again, verily I say unto you, let my servant William be appointed, ordained, and anointed as counselor unto my servant Joseph, in the room of my servant Hyrum, that my servant Hyrum may take the office of priesthood and patriarch, which was appointed unto him by his father, by blessing and also by right, that from henceforth he shall hold the keys of the patriarchal blessings upon the heads of all my people, that whoever he blesses shall be blessed, and whoever he curses shall be cursed, that whatsoever he shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever he shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And from this time forth I appoint unto him that he may be a prophet, and a seer, and a revelator unto my church, as well as my servant Joseph, that he may act in concert also with my servant Joseph, and that he shall receive counsel from my servant Joseph, who shall show unto him the keys whereby he may ask and receive, and be crowned with the same blessing and glory and honor and priesthood and gifts of the priesthood that once were put upon him that was my servant Oliver Cowdery, that my servant Hyrum may bear record of the things which I shall show unto him, that his name may be had in honorable remembrance from generation to generation forever and ever. We're going to end it there. It's not the best place to end it, really, but it's going to have to do. This is the blessing on Hyrum. Now note, he has given 2 appointments. Patriarch over the church in place of his father, which just before his death, Joseph Smith Sr. blessed Hyrum to be the next patriarch, as it says, which is his right, because he is the eldest living son of Joseph Smith Sr. And so then after Hyrum dies, it will pass to his eldest living son. That's how the patriarch works. Now, he's also called in the place of Oliver Cowdery. Now, Oliver Cowdery was excommunicated back in 1838, I believe, for kind of abandoning the church and turning to filthy lucre in becoming a lawyer and encouraging the saints to sue each other. So he was excommunicated, but when the church was organized, you had Joseph was the first elder and Oliver was the second elder. And even after the first presidency is formed and after the Quorum of the 12 is formed, Oliver was still second to Joseph Smith. It was a unique calling in the church that existed only during this time. And when Oliver Cowdery was excommunicated for a couple of years, there was nobody in that position. Hyrum is now being elevated to that position. He is no longer a counselor in the first presidency, but he is now the second elder of the church. William Law is being called to replace him as a counselor in the first presidency. We're going to leave that here. I do apologize again for the awkward editing at the beginning, and we will see you in the next reading where we will finish out section 124.